Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Well, Jay, I'm really stoked to talk to you. Welcome to the Rad Dad Show. I'm going to start the way we always start by asking, who are you?
Oh no, that's the hardest question, isn't it?
It is very,
Who are
it
you?
can be a big question.
I was I'm like, it was 7:30. It's 7:30 p.m. As a dad, you know what? This is like,
Yeah.
so tired. And then you just asked me what I'm taking as a spiritual question.
Yeah,
But I'm
let's go there.
pragmatically, I'm Jay Malinowski. I play in a band. I'm best known for playing in a band called Bedouin Soundclash. We started in 2000 and kept going from there. We still do it now. I write songs, I play guitar, I sing in the band. I've written a book. What else have I done? I went to art school. I still do paint, I still paint. And I also, but most importantly, I think, is that I'm also a dad. I have a 2-year-old son named Finn, just turned 2 in October. Amazing partner, Steph. Yeah. Anyway, we're both musicians.
So there's the summary.
That was a big, yeah.
Yeah, this is who Jay Malinowski is.
I skipped a lot of my life there, but that's more or less what I think the easiest way in.
Just hitting the high notes, but you know what? I like that you kind of capped it off with your dad, right? So this is kind of new for you, like well, relatively. So your son's 2 years old.
Yeah, he's 2.
So pandemic baby, like I don't know, like
it was before the pandemic. We actually knew. I mean, Steph was pregnant. We're still in the like, hey, we're not telling anyone phase of the pregnancy when we were doing our final. What was our final tour across Canada.
Yep.
And then, we were just about to go to the UK and everything got canceled. And so it was actually for us a blessing. I went back to Victoria. We got to kind of really nest in the house, and it was the first time in probably since I was 18 that I stayed in one place for more than 3 months. For sure, more than 3 months, but like without travel. And it was very hard to slowly pull myself away from that. Like I realized, I told my management, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll take like a month off. They're like, no, you're gonna take, you need to take more time off. Anyways, it turned into what it is, right? 2 years. How long has the pandemic been?
Yeah, coming on like 3 years almost.
And I mean, having Finn just completely changed my entire perspective on how I want to live my life, and like terms of like practically speaking with touring and
so like in what ways? Like I think I can probably guess with touring, it's you're having to obviously account for family time and kind of figure that out. But how else did it change you?
Yeah, that was the main thing, touring. And well, I think that as a musician, as an artist in my early life, I was so focused on me. I think everyone is when they're young.
Yeah, so of course.
It's like me. What does this do? What can I want to like? I'm going to go on stage. I'm going to write. All my songs are more or less about me. Everything's about me. And slowly that starts to get really boring. I think you see it starting to happen. You're like later 20s. You're like, I don't have the same passion I used to have for myself anymore. The narcissism and the invincibility is fading. And then there's so I mean, what shifted for me was just actually re-engaged me with the world and care, and in a good way, like in a positive, like I see so much positivity in the world. I think it's easy to be, before I could kind of be like, nihilistic musician, just sitting on the sidelines. Like now I'm like, that is a complete shift for me. And also just the way I approach music. I think now I'm like, there's a reason for doing it. It's to provide for my family. Like, it's a entirely different set of priorities than it was before.
Yeah, so kind of shifting you out of that focus on just yourself.
Yeah,
which can be really tough, I think, for a lot of people. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
Did you find that shift to be sort of tough? Like, was it kind of a shock to your system?
No,
When
I was
all
so
of a
tired of
sudden
I was so tired of myself by that
you're
point.
ready?
I was ready to just think about anything but me. No, I didn't, I haven't, no, I didn't find it that difficult. I was, I mean, I like when I had, I'm 40, so I'm about to turn 41 in January. So I'm no spring chicken. Like this wasn't like, I'm 24 years old or younger and had a son. And thank God, because if I was what I was like, that would have been a bad idea for me. But anyway, so I think I have at that at your late 30s and 40s, maybe a little bit easier to do. But yeah, no, I was ready to do that. It was something it actually wasn't my idea. It was my wife's idea. She's like,
Okay.
have a kid. I was like, seems like a terrible idea. And then we did, and now I'm like, I can't, like most things, to be honest, like most things that are because it wasn't my idea, I think it actually was a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's been the most unexpected blessing, right?
Yeah.
So.
It's funny, like part of why I asked that question too, about that shift from kind of being focused on yourself is I kind of, even myself, I always said to people, yeah, like my number of kids I want to have is 0 to 1. I kind of wasn't sure.
0 to 1. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of wasn't sure, and my wife kind of was in the same situation. Like, she was the one who was really more sure. And of course, like, you never go back. Right.
Yeah.
But I think it is that, sometimes it's that fear of like losing you or you're
yes.
It's just all sure. Like, it's not that you don't want to give something away to someone else, but it's just all you've known for so long.
Yeah. And I think as well, like I look at all the things that could possibly go wrong, like, so I'm like, well, everything's not perfect yet. Like, do I have this in place? Do I have that? Like, well, how am I going to provide this? And Steph's like, Steph, my partner, was like, why are you like, you don't, no one has everything perfectly.
Yeah,
figured
no
out.
one's
And
prepared.
I think it's like, so, and that's been the greatest lesson too, because it's like, there's a lot of imperfect stuff that happens during in the house. You're just like nothing, I do walk into people's, I love it. I walked into a friend of mine, he's a designer. And I walked into his apartment the other day, and everything is perfect. Like everything's like perfectly curated. I mean, he has like these, and there's nothing out. Everything's like in a cupboard, and like he's got like specialized coffee machine, like things that like decanters and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, like I remember thinking that I was like, I told him, I'm like, this apartment looks insane to me.
Yeah, you learn pretty quick how to deal with chaos, right?
Yeah, I'll go back at one point. I'll slide back into, but yeah, that heavily curated life or whatever. So
yeah, you kind of learn to enjoy the unpredictability a little bit too sometimes. Like that's kind of it is a bit freeing, especially if you're kind of a person who's a bit type A.
Yeah, and I also I like to be alone. I need alone time to write. And so, but what I didn't realize as well is that by being surrounded by people, it's like this sort of net that saves you from dropping into like the abyss of overthinking and all these like anxiety or whatever. I mean, it's, I used to spend so much of my time alone, and obviously now there's not as much. So.
Yeah. Do you find you have to sort of make that time though? Like do you find that still important to you and you need to like actually make that time?
Yeah, but I've found there's, I don't know if you know this, if you've seen this, but like all these things that my dad used to do, I'm like, why does he do that? And now I'm like, so I've gotten, I started running. It was like and I used to have to, I've become obsessed with running. The Steph says I get obsessed with things, but I used to have, if I went for a run, I'd have to have like my headphones, I'd have to have my playlist. And if one of those, like just to get myself through it, if one of those things wasn't right, I'm like, guess I can't go for a run.
Yeah.
And now my favorite, like in terms of getting alone, I'm like, I gotta go for a run. And it's like no headphones, just silence. And I go and it's like this meditation. And I'm like, I remember my dad used to do that. I'd be like, how the hell does he do that? Anyway, there's those weird things that I said there that I find is kind of that circle of like understanding. I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand.
Yeah, because I think you do sort of, you can't just like flip a switch and all of a sudden kind of, lose that part of you. So you kind of have to find ways to integrate it into that new life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. The first thing that you said was like, oh, it just totally changed my perspective. And then I think you kind of like just expanded on that and what that really meant to you. I like the positivity piece, and I want to sort of come back to that later. So I'm going to put a little bookmark there, but I like that positivity piece. This is the Rad Dads show. So I have to ask you, do you consider yourself a rad dad?
You know what I said?
Another loaded question. Hey,
I told my sister came over with her kids. They just lived down the street, and then and I went into the kitchen just before this, and I said, "Hey, I'm going on the Rad Dad show." They asked me the exact same question. They're like, "Are you a rad dad?" I think only other people can answer that, and I'm going to say yes. They strong affirmative. Yes, Jay's a rad dad.
I like that. I like the strong affirmative. That's good.
Yeah. I'm saying that for them because I want to be one. So how's that?
Yeah. So for you, it's, you want to kind of strive towards that, but you're not willing to go out on a limb and say, you can't make that claim convincingly. You got to like, sort of like make, tell your friend like, hey, make sure when I do that interview that you tell them I'm a rad dad. Yeah.
Because if it comes from me, no one's going to believe it.
Right. Okay, so let me flip it on you a little bit. So what if, well, how would you define it if we're talking about your friend? Like what's a rad dad? What are those characteristics?
What's a rad dad? Okay. You're asking me to, okay, so let me track back and say like, am I a rad dad? I don't know what the parameters are of the rad dad, but I'll say, do I enjoy, like I love being a dad. It's one of the it really, like I think I said before, it's become so much of my identity now. So yeah, I don't know if that makes me a rad dad, but.
So you love being a dad. So like those, I guess this is what the whole show is about. Like I've said this a few times on the show, like we sort of have this catchy name, it rhymes, rad dad. So musicians and musicians are rad, but that's not all. And I think we're sort of trying to figure out like,
what is a rad dad?
Yeah. Well, like what are those characteristics? What are those things that make someone a rad dad? Or maybe it's just a good dad. Like, and so first of all, like, I think like loving it and being a part of it, right? That's a big piece. So how do you in your,
what are you, I mean, my values that I would have for, I could go deep on what I think I work in an industry I mean, originally when I was at art school, and I think that especially in both the artistic fields when I was at school and in music now, I think it's important, put this lightly, it's tough there. A lot of my schooling, especially in art history, was focused on male bashing, if I can say it that way.
Okay.
And I say it because like, it is what it is. I think that there's I think a value I would have is to like, I think it's important to like, to not, you want to be your son's best friend, I guess. I mean, I'm kind of projecting here because he's 2 years old. So we try to encourage him to be whatever he wants to be. If you want, like, my wife's a fantastic tap dancer and fiddle player, and that's what she does professionally. So we just like so I think the thing to do is encouragement, and also like there, and also a bit of discipline to whatever he wants to do. And I think that usually the boundary aspect falls more on my side of the table than it does on Steph's, and I think that that's part of being a dad too. I don't know. I might be a reason why I mentioned this, the experience I had in art school is I'm like, there's certain things where I'm like, you know, I remember my dad being someone that I was a little bit intimidated by, and that wasn't a bad thing, you know, and not that like he was awesome, coached all my baseball teams, you know, took me to did like sports was a hugely important part of his life. Not as much the music side of things, but I think that that's like so I don't know. I think
so what I'm
going to try. So I'll say this. I think being a rad dad is also, at least in my situation, is also is a team effort done with my partner where we both respect each other's lanes, some roles, and you play a role to support the other person in that. So that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Like, I think you said a couple of things. The one is, you know, you want to be encouraging for your son, and I know, he's 2, so this is going to change and evolve, and maybe we'll have you back on.
So, I'm not like saying like, hey, excuse me. No, these are some pretty basic times right now. So
well, but still, like, I think you're thinking about those things, and you're wanting to set the stage, right? It's kind of what I'm hearing you say is like,
sure,
this is maybe what I'm hearing. So tell me if I'm right. I am, as a rad dad, giving some thought to what effect my actions have on the future of my kid. And whether that's setting boundaries or whether that's being supportive and sort of like knowing when to be the friend and when to be the disciplinarian.
When not to be right. And I'd say this too right now. I think the most, and this goes back to the touring aspect of it. I used to hear something kind of a cliche, but it's so true, that time is the most valuable thing we have. And I really think spending time is so important. And it's something that you take for granted when your parents did spend a lot of time with you. But I do, that's one thing that I sort of, I'm starting to realize as well now, especially because I know that I'm sure, so like there's moments where you're like, oh my God, I just want him to go to bed. And I like, this is like, whatever it is, there's these moments of like, just grueling, like
frustration.
And you just want it to end. Or like, even just on the small things, like, oh, I really wish he didn't want to read another book right now. I just want to put him to bed. I'm tired. And so it's managing those very normal emotions with realizing as well, this is a finite amount of time I get to spend with him. And I know that. And there's only so long that he'll actually be interested in wanting to read another Winnie the Pooh book or play with Matchbox cars or whatever, like there's only this, it doesn't stay that way forever. And I think that I try to, without holding too tightly to that, want to like, try to remember that in those excruciating, like,
that's so hard though. Right?
It is impossible. Like, I'm acting like I don't do that, by the way. I'm just like,
I mean, that's why we feel like guilt afterwards when, we're so frustrated at our
That's
kid.
What guilt's for, is to remind you.
Right. That's the evolutionary purpose probably. But like your kid's freaking out and you just want them to go to bed. And then after they go to bed, like 2 minutes later, once they finally fallen asleep, you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't, been so frustrated. I miss them now, that's just sort of part of it. But I like, this is why I love talking about this stuff too, because I think, and why I think people like hearing it too, is everyone has those emotions, and in the moment you feel stressed out and you feel like, I really should be like, cherishing this moment I have with my kid, but they're screaming in my face and I'm frustrated and I just want to walk away. And that's actually normal too. To feel that too. So, it's all a balance, right? It's all about finding that balance.
I haven't found it. You tell me how to find it.
I don't know. They get older, and in some ways things
like
get easier.
Right now, Steph's like, I'm like, great, this is a good time to do the interview. She'll put him to bed.
Well, same thing. So my wife is just on the other side of that door putting my kids to bed.
There you go. So this is great service you offer rad dads.
Exactly. We don't even have to hit record. We can just
do it tonight.
hang out.
You've had 4 interviews this week with that Rad Dads podcast. You're like, yeah, I know. They just keep asking me back. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we're going deep.
You're gonna have to do the bath time again. Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's great. You kind of mentioned your dad. So are you able to talk a little bit about that? Like you said that you kind of realize why your dad did the things that you do since you've become, or did the things that he did since you've become a father. Has it made you reflect on your relationship with your dad, or, you know?
Oh yeah. I think that's the cruel part of the cruel joke of life, is that you will be confronted with yourself. I think about all the things I did to my family, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope Finn doesn't do that, and what will I do? I don't know but beyond those things, which are funny and somewhat terrifying, I think I do. It really brings back, like, you get to see the side of like, for me, my dad, thinking about my dad, oh my God, when he was my age, like when of course I knew him when he was my age, he seemed just like a static thing in life that's my dad, and now I get to like think back, I'm like, and on those times, there's those times of insecurity and all the things that someone has to go through if they're providing for a household, and that you don't think about as a kid, hopefully, so there's a lot of stuff that I to be honest, I admire him so much, so I do think about it in a really positive way.
That's neat, and I agree with you. It is kind of a bit of a tragedy that you kind of don't figure these things out until sometimes it's almost like too late, right? It's kind of an interesting thing, and then your appreciation of things that you totally didn't even like recognize when you were younger. You kind of have no way of addressing that now, right? How about parenting style? Like, is that something that, do you reflect on that at all? Like, oh, my dad did this, and so I'm going to do that too, or my dad did this, and I want to do something different.
I mean, sort of. I have these ideas, but I think that I just end up I don't know what I do all day. I mean, I don't have any sort of I don't look at my list of values or anything and go, okay, that's what we're doing with Finn today. I'm like, now it's basically like in the moment, and I'm like, oh, probably should stop doing that. But in terms of like things my dad, like I think I mentioned before, one of the things that my dad was really good with us when we were little kids, and always, like, in terms of just taking us to do stuff and wrestling and like, very I saw him doing it the other day with my son, and I was like, with Finn, and I was like, oh, like, I remember that as a kid. And
cool.
And also coached tons of my sports teams. It's the debate is still out with my mom, though, over whether it was because he just really liked being a coach, or if he was interested in me playing sports. I think it was more he just loved coaching.
Yeah, which is okay.
I'm joking. Yeah, no, but he did a lot. Like, I'm joking too. He like would take me to play squash, and so I think about those things all the time, and I do think about, like, I don't know if this is common with, I'm sure it is, it's common with most fathers, is like, you think, okay, like, my dad provided this for me, I got to provide that for my son, or daughter. It's a natural comparison. You're like, what was my dad doing at this point? Okay, I got it,
Yeah. Has your dad's still around? Because you mentioned that you saw him playing with Finn.
It was just like, they actually, during the pandemic, my entire, like, so my sister lived in Victoria first. We grew up in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then she moved here in like 2015, and then we moved here right before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, my parents realized that they were living in Vancouver, that no one was around, and they couldn't see. They then decided, they didn't see their friends anyway. So they moved here. So my dad is here, just down the street as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's really
great.
nice.
Yeah.
Has your relationship with your dad changed or evolved at all, like since then, and since you became a dad?
No, I don't think so. I think it's
No?
kind of stayed the same. Yeah. I mean, we do the same thing. We really kind of connect through, like, I mean, I'm not a real big golf aficionado, but if I want, like me and my dad will connect, like we'll play golf, we'll go play tennis. Like that's the kind of bonding. It's not as much talking, it's more doing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of kind of the same thing with, so I mean, it's sort of the same all the time. We talk. I mean, it's not like we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that friendship piece, that's kind of an interesting thing. It's something, lots of people sort of observe as they have kids. Then the dynamic with the grandparent is just, it's kind of a little bit different. It's a really unique and interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So maybe, I really want to talk about the new record. This is where it's a parenting podcast, but I want to talk about the new record, and especially because of something that you said earlier. So you've got the new record, We'll Meet in a Hurricane, came out last month, I guess.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Oh, thank you.
I've been a big fan for a long time, and followed your solo career and everything that you've done. But this album like really caught me right away off the bat, and I think some of why it did that is this positivity, I think, that you're talking about. So I don't know, this might just be the way I'm interpreting it. But that kind of really shines through to me in the new record. And is that a fair assessment? Like, do you feel like there is that different vibe?
Well, I mean, and this is something we talk about. Yeah, I definitely do. I think there's also I think it's becoming a dad, first of all, is like what's the dad thing. There's it seemed to my 25-year-old self, having a child seems like the end of a career.
Yeah.
The reality of it is it's actually was the beginning of like where I stopped caring so much about things that didn't matter. Like, and like what things look like, how, if they're cool or if they're not, like it, none of that matters. Like it's the substance that matters, truly. And with this record, it's like, hope is such a vital part of why we make music and being life affirming. And I don't think I really felt like a lot of the other, like, especially later Bedouin records sort of weren't as much about that. And there's a place for like the brutal hearts of in our catalog, and some dark like love songs. But I think this record is maybe resonating that way. And I also, got sober just like 5 years ago. Over 5 years ago.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, that is every achievement since, I mean, I can basically say that is the most important pillar in my life, is sobriety, and in the sense that it has provided for everything else, whether it's Finn and Steph and me to be capable as a person and having spiritual growth in my life. And part of that, I think, is that this is the first record that has been fully formed within that time period.
Yeah.
Mass the my dog's Marge is coming in.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, Marge.
She doesn't. Margie. Anyway, so she's a psycho.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a little Margie. Here. Hey, look. Can you see her?
Yep, I can see her. Yeah.
Margie.
Hi, Marge.
No, she's not. She's just very.
Looks like a cozy spot there for her.
She's cozy, yeah, exactly. She will stick her face in front of that fire and not leave for 6 hours. So, anyways, but I think that getting sober, I think is like, because to me, like the sober part, putting that aside, it's really the choice to live spiritually, like, and with that as a main component of life, of spiritual health, and not saying that in a religious way, but in a holistic sense of like, how am I behaving towards myself as a human and in the world and operating in the world. So I think that in general, all those things though, like it was just a freeing experience. Like when you're in a bad place, you think about all the things that could go wrong and all the people that don't like your music and all the, like that you start defining yourself based on hate because that's a projection of how you are. I think that the difference with this record is it really is just like, this is what we wanted to do. Because we really like it. And I think all the songs have a life that way. So that's what I think. I mean, and at the same time, I don't think what I think matters too much because it's all about like we make the music and the beautiful part is like how people receive it, and that's, to me, as like, I know some musicians don't feel this way. They feel like, oh, it's like once they finish that songs, it's over for them. For me, it's actually about the life it takes after that. Yeah. So.
Well, it does come through in the music. Like I think so I've read a lot of reviews and things like that on the new album, and pretty common comment is like, oh, this kind of sounds like street gospels. This is kind of like, a return to form. I've heard that. Which I do hear, and I know some of the songs, like I think on was it on CGSR or something, you did an interview and you said something about Walk Through Fire and how that was written sort of back around that time. And I can sort of hear some of that in the record. There's some familiar sounds.
Sorry, I'm just Finn.
Okay. Yeah, if you need to this is part of it. This is all good.
Hi, Finn.
We can have a cameo here.
Night. Do you want to come on screen, Finn? Really dirty. He's dirty? He's filthy. Come here. Do you want to say hello? Come here.
Hi, Finn.
Hi, Finn. Come here. Come here. Come say hello.
Hi, I'm Brett. Is your dad a rad dad?
Finn. Say hello. Hello.
Just checking things out, hey?
Now he wants to, close the door.
Good, you're in the meeting now.
Okay, come on in. Come over here. You want to say hello? Come here. Hello.
Hi.
Come here.
This is great.
Whoa, no. Yeah, Margie's in here too. Look, doing an interview.
Hi, Finn. How are you? I like your shirt. What's on there? Is that
hot dogs?
Is that hot dogs?
Hot dogs and milk bottles and
nice.
mustard. It's a good combo. And he has ketchup on
dinner.
His face.
Yeah, perfect.
What did you say? Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's good to meet you, Finn.
Good to meet you. It's time for your bath. All right.
Bath time? That's my favorite time.
Whoa. Okay, there we go.
No, that's how you handle it. Like you've probably seen that video of the guy he was like on BBC.
Yeah.
And his kids come in the room and he's trying to like push them off screen.
That's actually one of and then like how seriously he took it was what made that video. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that made that video. But yeah, that was actually one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, that's the rule book on how not to handle that.
Yeah.
So I was saying, so that actually comes through in the music. And I think what I was saying is a lot of people are kind of comparing it to kind of earlier Bedouin. And I think in terms of that kind of like that positive upbeat vibe, that's part of it. But I think if I look to like some of your older records where it has that vibe, the content of the songs might though not necessarily reflect that hopefulness that you're talking about now. And so that's something that I think is different here and really shines through and like really grabs people. My kids love the record. They want to put it on when we're in the car. Like
that's awesome.
And that kind of shines through. Like I think there's that element that you take from music where you can, we like I really like punk rock. And that's something I really like about punk rock is you get that authenticity. And so when you hear authenticity coming through music, you can't really put your finger on what it is, but you can feel it. Totally. And I really get that from the
thank you.
record.
That is honestly like what you want to do, right? I mean, if you're not making pop, I mean, you're not making pop music, that's what you're hoping to do. I think there's always like when I was younger as well, like, you know, from NoFX or Bad Religion or like Rancid. For me, The Clash obviously was like Joe Strummer remains one of the most inspiring people, because, you know, especially when you like an artist that transcends even a scene or time or like a fashion, you know, like I think that's something that speaking of that, like someone like Joe Strummer is a great example, because I think eventually you saw him as he was maturing in the Mescaleros into like, he realized, I think he even said it, like he's like a folk artist, you know. He said I used to hate hippies, but then you realize like there's this like kind of truth that you like lay down all of the clothes and the armor and all the stuff that like the context to who you are and what that you know, and then you're left with like there's the real part. And I think that, like, you know, that was one thing that I think really shone about someone like Joe Strummer. Anyways, and on this record we were, I like I said, I think it's just being like, this is what we want to say, and I'm not too worried about.
Were a lot of those songs sort of written in that time period, like you said, sort of in the sober phase? But how about in the since being a dad phase? Like how much of the record?
A lot of it was. A lot of it, all of it was. I mean, let me think. All the lyrics were for sure. Some of the music came from before, but all of the lyrics and most of the lyrics, I mean, if you listen to it, are like very domestic. Beyond Four Walls, Longer Days and Shorter Years. It's very much about being up at, I mean, I wrote that actually when it was like, you know, 3 a.m. right when Finn was back from the hospital, you know, and you're like up with him all night. So most of them did.
It's neat to hear that sort of shine through. Even title track, We'll Meet in a Hurricane, like in my mind, what that sort of said to me, and you talked about it in some other interviews where you said it's kind of about like finding yourself. But I kind of almost like, I'm thinking about the hurricane, like you mentioned, like in your home, like you know, your life is just sort of in this chaos, but that's where you're finding yourself.
Totally.
You know, and so that's a really neat concept to me.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, you know, it definitely is through trial that you're going to figure out maybe what you're made of, but it definitely, like, you'll find some stuff out about yourself. Anyway, so.
You guys have some touring plans as well. So you've just last Friday, I think, announced or tickets went on sale last Friday for your tour. So tell me a little bit about that.
We're going to be going across Canada. Unfortunately, we won't be in Edmonton, but we'll be doing. Come on out to the West Coast.
I'd love to. Especially now.
I know. Come on out. We'll be doing Victoria, Vancouver, and then Kitchener, Toronto, and Montreal, all at the end of February, 2023. And we're actually really looking forward to this show. I'm doing a lot of artwork for it, so I think it's going to be very cool visual. Like we're trying to come up with a cool visual way of expressing the music, which is something we usually focus entirely on music for our shows. We're doing foraying into the visual side as well. So I think
we should mention too, you did the art for this record as well, right? And
I've done the artwork actually for all the records.
And so, like, you know, I think a lot of people may not realize that, and that's a big part of your life as well as a kind of visual artist too.
I always think I'm about to, like, I'm like, okay, well, looks like I'm gonna go full-time, try to be a painter, which I don't know. I've been saying this for 20 years now. So anyway.
So new album's out. For people who haven't checked it out yet, go check it out. I want to ask one thing though. I don't have the vinyl copy here, so I couldn't kind of verify this for myself, but I was looking at the new album on Discogs.
Okay.
And it lists Finn with a vocal credit.
Yeah, he's in
Is that track. Legit?
Yes. Yeah, he's at the beat. I recorded him, and he's on Something Lost, Something Found on that track. He's saying, what is this?
Okay. I'll have to go have a listen for it.
Because that song is sort of like it's like there's a few references to me and Steph meeting and her playing Irish reels, and because she's a she's very much grew up with Celtic music, and that's her background. So anyway, yeah.
Well, that's really cool to have that connection. So I was really surprised to see that, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
take a listen for it. So okay, so new record, tour coming up. Anything else happening in the Bedouin world, or anything else happening with you, Jay? That you
we'll be announcing very shortly a bunch more tours that I'm sure people will be very excited to pick up and internationally. So they're we can't announce it yet. We can't say anything yet, but we'll be announcing very soon some more touring. And yeah, we'll be back out. We'll definitely be out in this. Plan is to keep going through the summer on this record, and yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get you back in Edmonton soon. We'll do.
Oh, we will. That
something together.
We Edmonton's one of our Starlight is one of our favorite places to play. Anyway.
Yeah. I've seen you at Starlight. I saw you at actually probably the last time I saw you was at Pigeon Lake Music Festival. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah. And
that was kind of a weird one. Just
it was a little bit odd, wasn't it?
It was different, but you guys were great. It was an amazing show. Just kind of a really neat venue because it's just kind of off.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was odd in the sense that I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, oh, cool. It was yeah. Anyway.
It's kind of like a real campground vibe. I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, totally. And it's grown since then. They just announced their lineup for this year, and they've got a pretty exciting lineup too. But that was the last time I saw you. I also, I wanted to mention I saw you on the Dead Coast tour.
Oh yeah.
In 2014, you played the Aviary in Edmonton, and that was an amazing show.
Oh, thank you.
When that album came out, it was really different, obviously, from anything I'd heard from you. But that show, really, when you see a band live and it's it clicks, right?
Yeah,
there.
Right.
That was it for me. So was really amazing.
With the Aviary show, was that with Don Franks doing the stories, or was that just this music?
I think it was just music. You had a couple guy, you had a tree. I guess it was a trio or whatever.
Yeah, okay. We had the Dead Coast, and then I probably had was Patrick Creef opening?
I sort of can't remember.
You should talk to Patrick Creef too. He has his little daughter. Hello.
Sorry, I just lost you for a second.
Yeah,
so you said you should talk to Patrick.
Yeah, you should talk to Patrick. He's a dad. He's a rad. I'll say he's a rad dad.
Sure. Okay. So he's got the verification, the verified check. Well, that's awesome. It's been great talking to you. I really appreciate your time chatting about being a dad. Congratulations and congratulations on the new record.
Thank you.
Wish you and your family all the best. And, hopefully we'll see you in Edmonton sometime soon.
We will. And when I do come out, we'll actually see each other in person.
That sounds amazing. Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for your time tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Take care.